Mohamed Siad Barre, a name that evokes a whirlwind of emotions in Somalia, the man who ruled the nation with an iron fist for over 2 decades. Born in the early 20th century, this controversial figure's life started in the humblest of settings, in Shilavo, a small town in Italian Somaliland. He rose from being a simple officer in the Italian colonial police to becoming the president of Somalia, a journey marked by ambition, resilience, and a ruthless pursuit of power. His presidency, however, has always been a subject of intense debate. While some laud him for his efforts in modernizing Somalia and promoting education, others vehemently criticize his authoritarian rule, his human rights abuses, and the role he played in leading Somalia into a devastating civil war. A figure of heavy debate, Siad Barre's story begins in the humblest of settings. Born in 1919 into Italian Somaliland, Siad Barre's path to power was paved with military prowess. His journey begins in the small town of Shilavo, where young Siad Barre first breathed life. His early years were shaped by the cultural melting pot of Italian influence and Somali traditions. Intrigued by the disciplined structure and promise of adventure, Barre joined the Italian colonial police force, marking his first foray into the military realm. This decision was to set the stage for his future as he plunged headfirst into the world of strategy and power. As the world was swept up in the turmoil of the Second World War, Barre found himself serving under the British military. It was a time of global uncertainty, where alliances were tested and heroes were forged. For Barre, it was an opportunity to prove his mettle and further his understanding of the military. It was here, amidst the chaos of war, that Barre began to hone his leadership skills, displaying an uncanny knack for strategy and a relentless drive that would later define his presidency. Following the end of the war, Barre continued his military career, rising through the ranks with a blend of determination and tactical acumen. His experiences in the colonial police and the British military had shaped him into a formidable force, ready to take on the challenges that lay ahead. And as fate would have it, Barre was destined for more than just a military career. His experiences had given him a taste for leadership, a desire to shape the destiny of his homeland. The military was his stepping stone, a platform from which he would launch his bid for the highest office in the land. From the colonial forces to the presidency, Barre's rise was anything but ordinary. His journey, marked by resilience and ambition, serves as a testament to his indomitable spirit. And as we delve deeper into his life and legacy, we'll see how this military man navigated the complex world of politics to become one of Somalia's most controversial figures. 1969, a year of seismic change for Somalia as Siad Barre seizes power. The end of October that year saw the sudden death of Somalia's then-president, Abdirashid Ali Sharmarke. His demise created a power vacuum that Siad Barre, a military officer, was quick to fill. Siad Barre led a bloodless military coup that quickly took control of the nation. He suspended the constitution, dissolved the parliament, and declared martial law. The civilian government that had been in place was swiftly replaced by the Supreme Revolutionary Council, SRC, a military junta headed by Barre himself. This was a period of radical change, as the military moved swiftly to consolidate its power and restructure the political landscape of the nation. In just a matter of days, Siad Barre had gone from a military officer to the head of state. But his ambitions did not stop there. He sought to reshape Somalia into a socialist state. To achieve this, he established the Somali Revolutionary Socialist Party, a political platform that would serve as the vehicle for his socialist policies. The SRSP was more than just a political party, it was a symbol of the new Somalia that Barre envisioned, a Somalia that was centralized, where power was held by the state, and where the economy was controlled by the people. Barre's dream was to create a society where everyone was equal, and where the state had the power to ensure this equality. But creating such a society was no small task. It required a complete overhaul of the existing social and economic structures, and it required the people's support. Barre knew this, and he was prepared to do whatever it took to realize his vision. He embarked on a campaign to win the hearts and minds of the Somali people, promising a brighter future under his rule. Barre's ascension marked the start of a new era, one that would change Somalia forever. His rise to power was swift and decisive, and it set the stage for a period of radical change and transformation. But as history would show, The journey to realizing his vision would be fraught with challenges, and the consequences of his rule would reverberate through the decades to come. An amalgamation of socialism, pan-Somali nationalism and authoritarian rule, Siad Barre's presidency was truly unique. A key part of Barre's rule was the nationalization of industries. Industries that were once privately owned were brought under government control. This was a move designed to ensure that the wealth of the nation was distributed among its people, rather than being concentrated in the hands of a few. While this may sound like a noble cause, in practice it led to economic difficulties and was a source of discontent among the population. Coupled with these economic reforms, Barre embarked on a series of land reforms. Traditional clan-based land ownership was replaced with a system where land was owned by the state and leased to individuals. This was a radical shift, and not one that was welcomed by all. It disrupted centuries-old systems and caused significant upheaval. But perhaps the most striking aspect of Barre's rule was his cult of personality. He positioned himself as the father of the revolution, the savior of the Somali people. His image was everywhere, from billboards to currency, and his speeches were broadcast across the nation. This cult of personality was not just about ego, but about control. By positioning himself as the embodiment of the revolution, any criticism of Barre was seen as criticism of the revolution itself. While these policies were far-reaching and transformative, they were not universally popular. Many saw them as overreaches of governmental power, and they were a source of significant opposition. But Barre held firm, believing that his vision for a socialist, united Somalia was the right path forward. Barre's rule was characterized by strong central control, radical reforms, and a cult of personality. It was a time of great change for Somalia, but also a time of great tension. Many of the policies he implemented continue to shape the nation to this day. Barre's rule, though marked with reforms, was not without its fair share of opposition. The 1980s brought with them the winds of change, winds that would eventually topple Barre's regime. As the decade wore on, the cracks in Siad Barre's rule began to widen. The internal strife that had been simmering under the surface started to boil over, exacerbated by economic decline and political repression. Barre's socialist policies, once seen as revolutionary, were now viewed as suffocating. Nationalized industries floundered, unable to compete or innovate. Land reforms, while initially popular, led to disputes and discontent as they failed to deliver the promised prosperity. The centralization of power and the cult of personality around Barre, the so-called father of the revolution, started to chafe, especially as the promised utopia remained elusive. Internally, opposition to Barre's rule grew. Clan-based factions, long suppressed under Barre's rule, began to reassert themselves. Armed rebellions sprouted across the country, challenging the might of the central government. Siad Barre's regime, once seemingly invincible, was now under siege from within. Externally, the situation was no better. The global political landscape was shifting, and Somalia was no longer a prized pawn in the Cold War. Support from the Soviet Union had already waned, and the United States, once a staunch ally, was reconsidering its stance. The international lifeline that had propped up Barre's regime was shrinking, leaving the government isolated and vulnerable. The culmination of these factors led to an irreversible crisis. Siad Barre, who had ruled Somalia with an iron fist for over 2 decades, was ousted from power in 1991. The downfall of Barre's regime left a power vacuum in its wake, and Somalia descended into a prolonged civil war. The nation, once hopeful and on the path to progress under Barre's early rule, was now in the throes of chaos and uncertainty. In 1991, Barre's rule came to a bitter end, plunging Somalia into a prolonged civil war. This marked the beginning of a dark chapter in Somalia's history, the repercussions of which are still felt today. Siad Barre, a man of many faces, leaves behind a legacy as complex as his rule. His presidency is a hotbed of debate and controversy, with opinions as varied as the colors in a rainbow. On one hand, there are those who laud him for his efforts in modernizing Somalia. His policies led to the nationalization of industries and land reforms, and he is credited for promoting education and infrastructure development. He, to some, was the catalyst that maintained Somalia's territorial unity. On the other hand, there are voices that echo with criticism against his authoritarian rule. Accusations of human rights abuses darken his legacy, and many hold him accountable for leading Somalia into a devastating civil war. These contrasts paint a picture of a man who embodied the struggles of post-colonial African leadership, navigating ideological shifts and the challenges of governing diverse societies amidst internal and external pressures. Mohamed Siad Barre, a figure of controversy, his story a testament to the complexities of post-colonial African leadership.